Happy Monday and happy opening day week, baseball fans. Opening day for the Cardinals this Thursday as the roster is beginning to take shape. They're down to 33 players. What's it going to look like? What's the starting rotation going to look like? The lineup. And we're also talking some extensions on today's show as Harrison Bader has signed one. And I asked the question, who's next for the Cardinals to extend? It's going to be an exciting episode, so stay tuned for all that information on today's episode of Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Cardinals for Monday, April the 4th of 2022. Happy opening day week, baseball fans. Oh, it feels so good to be able to say that as we will have official baseball this week. I'm Lucas Smith, host of the show Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making it your first listen of the day, Monday to Friday. Today's episode is brought to you in part by BetOnline. BetOnline is where the game starts. Get all your betting needs at BetOnline. It's here, everybody. Cardinal baseball is coming your way on Thursday, April the 7th against the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's a home game. We don't have to wait a week for the Cardinals home opener. It is opening day, all rolled into one. It's just so exciting. It's hard to believe, honestly, that we are here at times because there were times this offseason where it felt like we weren't ever going to get here. It felt like it was going to be until May or June that we got here, but CBA was agreed to. Spring training has flown by. The offseason was chaotic for a lot of different teams. Cardinals making a couple moves in there as well. And at the end of the day, we have baseball coming this week. I can't wait. I absolutely cannot wait. There is a bit of a bummer news to it, though, as I will not be able to able to watch the Cardinal game because I'm officiating this weekend in Wichita, Kansas at the NERSA Basketball Championship Series. Very exciting opportunity for the officiating side of my life, but I'll still be up to date on Cardinal information and bringing episodes Monday to Friday of this week, but just a little update there, more to come on that. The roster's taken shape. Cardinals are down to 33 players on the active roster at the time of this recording Monday morning. Got to get it down to 28 by probably Wednesday, but at least obviously by Thursday when opening day hits. And it's going to be fascinating to see how they talk. Because I talked about it last week, but with the rosters being expanded to 28, the no minimum on the number of pitchers you can have to start the season, the Cardinals are likely going to carry 15 pitchers. And that's exactly what Katie Woo has reported as well of The Athletic, that they will carry 15 pitchers, with the reserves being the typical reserves: Kisner, Sosa, Pujols, Dickerson, things of those nature, Nootbaar as well. But 15 pitchers. That's a great option to start, especially when your fifth starter is so much in question. Because the Cardinals still have yet to name it. Katie Woo reporting that the order of the rotation is going to be Wainwright on Thursday. That's official, making his 7th opening day start, passing Bob Gibson for most in Cardinal history. Miles Michaelis will start in Game 2, Steven Matz Game 3, Dakota Hudson Game 4, and then TBD right now in Game 5 against the Kansas City Royals. So we will wait to see. That will likely be announced in the next couple of days. You've got some options. It's not going to be a Sean Manaea trade, as he was officially traded to the San Diego Padres yesterday. Could it be a Frankie Montas trade? Maybe. But at this point, we all need to start being okay with and accepting the fact that it's going to be an internal option. It's going to be somebody that we know, somebody on the roster currently, not going to be a big trade that happens. It's going to be some combination of Drew Verhagen, Jake Woodford, maybe even a Jordan Hicks, kind of a surprise candidate. We'll talk more about Hicks in just a little bit, but the bullpen is going to be extensive. You're going to have a lot of bullpen arms. Brooks will probably make the roster. Verhagen, Whitgren, Gallegos, Cabrera, Hicks, Whitley, Helsley. All these guys are going to make the Major League roster. And that's a good thing because this bullpen, even as no name as it is, as many people on this bullpen that you could say, whoa, these people are not top-end bullpen arms. TJ Mcfarland, another one that I forgot to mention. I think that this bullpen has a chance to be solid, especially in the first month, just because of the vast number of it. Now, when rosters shrink back down to 26, I believe the maximum pitchers you can carry is 13, maybe 12. I forget the exact number. But you'll still have that extra pitcher that you usually wouldn't have with rosters being at 25. So we'll have to see who auditions well in the first month of the season, at least the first calendar month of the season here in April. But the starting rotation looks a little weak right now, with Jack Flaherty being hurt and won't be ready for opening day. That fifth starter spot is up for grabs, and it's up for grabs for a reason because nobody's really taking control of it. Jake Woodford has impressed a little bit this spring. You've got Drew Verhagen that has been solid, but also had that rough start his most recent time out. Those are probably the two candidates. It might even be a piggyback or an opener for that fifth starting rotation spot. Something that the Cardinals talked about doing a little bit last year, and now they might actually have to be forced to do it because, as I mentioned, Jordan Hicks, who has looked phenomenal in his return this spring training, if he were to be a serious candidate for the fifth starter spot, he probably wouldn't be ready to go 4, 5, 6 innings at this point. Just plain and simple, that's how it goes because he doesn't have enough time under his belt, to be stretched out to go that long. So it will likely just be some sort of piggyback or opener type option, which is kind of the new style of baseball, right? It is the the Hit Bay Rays model, what they like to do with the opener and the piggybacking, and one starter goes 3 or 4 and the other starter goes 3 or 4 type option, and it works for the Rays, right? But I still think that the Cardinals should be in a position by the trade deadline to add some pitching to this team, because even when Jack Flaherty comes back, yes, that's a solid 1 through 5. But you don't know who else is going to get hurt. You don't know how effective Flaherty is going to be when he comes back. You just simply don't know. So the starting rotation, while I'm still very high on 1 through 4, and I'm excited to see what 1 through 4 do, again, as I've talked about many times, maybe not necessarily will be as dominant as the Brewers. They have what seems like 5 Cy Young candidates, at least 4. But they're going to be solid. They're going to be above average. They're going to keep this team in the game. I think that fifth starting rotation spot could be, and is, in my opinion, an area of weakness for the Cardinals, clearly. All due respect to Jake Woodford, all due respect to Drew Verhagen, the other options that might hold that fifth starter spot. This is why the Cardinals added guys like Verhagen and Whitgren to give them depth, so that's a positive. It's not necessarily dominant depth, as somebody might put it, but it is depth that the Cardinals are going to be able to tread water for a little bit, pitching-wise, and the roster expansion extremely helps them. Aaron Brooks has looked solid this spring. You know what you're going to get about guys like Cabrera, Gallegos. Hicks has looked very solid this spring. That bullpen is set up right now that you're going to have more than just the 3 guys that the Cardinals had for the first 2 months of last season produce. I think they're going to have people up and down that bullpen that just simply produce day in and day out that gives Oli Marmol different options, which is a good thing. You always, did I say always? Always want options out of that bullpen, and preferably more than just 3, and one of them being your closer. I'm really high on Whitley. I think that he's going to be solid. Helsley has looked really good this spring as well. This roster, as I mentioned, taking shape. There are some questionable moves that the Cardinals have made since March 31st when they got the roster down to 37. Jacob Bosoyevich, apologies if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. So Ali Sanchez and Juan Yepes were optioned to the minors on March 31st. Juan Yepes was really the only surprise there, or even anything close to a surprise, I guess I should say. With Albert Pujols coming on the team, it could have been decently obvious that Yepes was going down, but still you had a slight chance that he would make the roster. Ivan Herrera was also optioned to the minor league camp that same day. Catcher of the future, in my opinion, for the St. Louis Cardinals, getting more seasoned in the minor leagues. Also, roster moves made on April 1st. Top prospect, or one of the top prospects, Matthew Liberatore, reassigned, as well as Blake Parker. Liberatore, Oli Marmol talked about focus for him being the main issue, needing to refocus him and just being able to make pitches more often for Liberatore. Hopefully he's able to do that in the minor leagues. And then the most recent roster move was optioning infielder Brendan Donovan to the minor league players to get the roster where it stands right now at 33 players, which I don't know if ruffled some feathers is too strong of a term for this case, but it definitely raised some eyebrows in terms of he had a pretty solid spring. Ali Marmol had really good things to say about him. Why send him down? Could be that you only have so many roster spots to fill. So currently stands at 33. I believe that is without the Jack Flaherty being officially placed on the IL and being taken off the roster. So really, for all intents and purposes, 32. But the pitching seems to me to be an area of strength for the Cardinals. With all the questions, even with the weakness at the fifth starter spot, I do think that this bullpen has a chance to be solid. And again, not because of the names they have, but just because of the insight that I think I have on this team, that they're going to be a solid bullpen. Do they need help? Is there areas of weakness? Sure, we can talk about those. Already have. But the roster itself is taking shape. And just a quick note to finish the pitching side of the roster before we get to the hitting side of the roster. Very excited for opening day with Adam Wainwright getting the ball. It's official. He's going to start opening day. He'll be most likely pitching to Yadier Molina with Albert Pujols DHing for him. Poetic, storyline filled, wonderful news right there. So before we get into the lineup, as it is almost certainly set for the St. Louis Cardinals, I do want to tell you about today's title sponsor, and that is BetOnline. National Championship is tonight, and BetOnline.net is your number one sport for all your betting needs and sports info from all the latest sport developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds, podcasts, and reviews for all different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Talking about rosters, a lot of prospects have been going up and down, all over the place. Bobby Witt, Spencer Torkelson have been announced making the opening day rosters for their respective teams. For more on prospects, head over to Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia and going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. He's great. He's awesome. Love his insight that he brings to the network for the prospect side of things. I talked about BetOnline a little bit ago. Just a real quick note for tomorrow's show. It's an NL Central roundtable. Me and 5 other members, 2 Locked On Reds hosts, Brewers, Pirates, and Cubs as well. Jeff and Steve of Locked On Reds, Andrew of Cubs, Vinny of Brewers, and Ethan of Locked On Pirates do a massive roundtable. It was a great time recording with those gentlemen. Even though they might disagree with me on my Cardinal takes a little bit, it was a good time talking to them about baseball, so be sure to be on the lookout for that podcast coming out your way tomorrow. The Cardinals lineup is almost certainly set. Katie Woo tweeting out earlier this morning that it looks like an opening day lineup today as the Cardinals play more spring training action against the Nationals. Obviously, Pujols playing at first base today. That won't happen opening day. It'll be Goldschmidt. Michael is starting today. Obviously, it's going to be Wainwright starting on Thursday. But the lineup for today's game looks like how it will likely look like this Thursday on opening day at Busch Stadium against the Pittsburgh Pirates. There's a very high chance of that. Even though the Pirates are starting a right-handed pitcher, Pujols is going to start opening day. Ben Frederickson tweeted that as well. But here's the lineup for the Cardinals spring training game in 4 or 5 hours at the time of this recording. Dylan Carlson leading off in right field, Goldschmidt DHing, Tyler O'Neill in left, Nolan Arenado at third, Albert Pujols at first base. That still is somewhat bizarre to say for me. Paul DeYoung at short, Yadi catching, Bader in center, and Tommy Edman rounding out the starting 9 at second base. The only thing that I would change, in all honesty, switching first base and DH for Goldschmidt and Pujols. And with Tommy Edman's lack of success against right-handed pitching, keep him down there. No disrespect to Tommy Edman. He's a solid baseball player. If it were a lefty, maybe you put him up at the top of the lineup and you put Carlson in the middle with Carlson's success against left-handed pitching. But this is a very good, a very good chance this is the lineup you see on opening day. And that's a pretty solid lineup because I think at minimum you can debate on where they hit in the lineup. That's the 9 you're going to see. And without Pujols, that's the 8 you're going to see on a regular basis here in 2022. That's a pretty solid starting 9. Playoffs, minimum, division title is what they're going for, as well as a World Series title. I would run, especially that outfield, I would run that outfield out against any outfield in baseball and feel pretty good about my chances. Even the DH, you have a platoon between Dickerson and Pujols. You could go a lot worse routes at your DH position than somebody like Corey Dickerson, who hits right-handers very well, and somebody like Albert Pujols, who hits left-handers very well. You could go a lot of worse ways. And I think that, Albert talked about this a lot as well recently. He doesn't necessarily care about the numbers. He wants that third World Series ring. He's going to be motivated. He's going to be re-energized. I've talked about this a lot on this show. He is going to be focused, energized. He is ready to roll. I think he's going to put up solid numbers. I'm not trying to say he's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs. I'm not trying to guarantee him hitting 21 home runs to get to that 700 mark. No. What I am saying, I think he's going to be solid in this lineup, an average bat. But again, what he brings to the table is so much more than just the numbers that he produces at the end of the year. So much more. And for Albert to be on this team to go win a third championship, like I said, storybook galore, or storylines galore. But you could go a lot of worse ways with the DH spot. And again, you could have a combination at the top of the lineup, because Ali Marmol talked a lot about what? Lineup fluidity. So at the top of the lineup, you could see a combination of Carlson, Edman, Bader at the top, depending on how hot they are, what they're doing, the matchups. I think right-handers, you're going to see Edman, or right-handers, you're going to see Carlson at the top. Left-handers, you could see Edman at the top. If one of them start to struggle, or maybe they find a little bit more power, you want to get him with more runners in scoring position chances. Maybe you put Carlson down there and you put Bader at the top. But any one of those guys, I think, could be a really good leadoff hitter. And like I've talked about a lot, like Marmol has mentioned a lot, you're not going to see the same lineup day to day. You're probably going to see a very similar 8 position players on the lineup card each day. But where they hit in the lineup could be extremely, extremely different. And I'm ready to roll with Paul Deyoung at shortstop. I'm going to say it. I really have been impressed with him this spring. I really think that he is going to reward the Cardinals for their confidence in him. Because there was a time when myself included thought, man, why are we going why are the Cardinals going with Paul Deyoung again? It's time to move on, time to go get Trevor Story, time to go get somebody else. But Paul Deyoung, there was a story, I talked about it, improved his swing a lot in the offseason, and his spring numbers prove that. He has put up really solid spring training numbers. And again, spring training numbers could mean little to nothing. But at the end of the day, he is hitting 500 with an on-base of 565, slugging 950. To put that in a little bit better terms, he's 10 for 20, scored 7 runs, has 3 doubles, 2 home runs, 9 runs driven in. He's walked once and struck out 3 times in 9 games. These are his best spring training numbers since the 12-game spring training he had in 2020. Paul Deyoung is going to have a good year. April 4th, 2022, Lucas Smith on Locked On Cardinals has said it. Paul Deyoung is going to have a good year. Does that mean he hits 35 home runs? Does that mean he makes the All-Star team, wins the Gold Glove, wins the Silver Slugger? It could. But all I am saying is that Paul Deyoung is not going to be a below-average shortstop in 2022. It's not going to be one of those situations where you say, man, why are the Cardinals rolling with Deyoung again? I'm confident in saying that. There were times even last year, consistency is going to be the key, but there were times even last year where he impressed. He had a bad year. Don't get me wrong, but there were times. Consistency will be the key. This is a great spring training. The numbers are solid. I understand that spring training numbers mean very little at the end of the day, because nobody really remembers those. But I think that Paul Deyoung has the ability to put it together in 2022. If he stays healthy for the whole year, he's got a good shot at being consistent in my mind. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Cardinal confidence or the confidence that the Cardinals have in him. I really do think that plays a pretty decent factor. But again, as I've mentioned, not that he's the key to the lineup, because this can still be a very solid above-average lineup with him struggling. But if he's able to produce, and if he's able to be an above-average bat, and to be some protection in the 5, 6, 7 hole in the lineup, oh man, does this lineup get scary. And does this lineup get long? Because then you don't really have somebody that you can pitch to if Deyoung is the weakest link. Yeah, you can talk about Yachty, and I get that, but Deyoung could make this lineup he could take it from an above-average lineup to a really, 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 really good lineup. Or whatever terminology you want to use. An above-average lineup to I wouldn't say great. I'm not saying Deyoung is that much of a difference. But he would lengthen this lineup immensely. I do believe that. This lineup is one that didn't get a ton of additions in the offseason. They got Dickerson and Pujols. But as we saw in their 17-game winning streak last year, the St. Louis Cardinals have a pretty solid offense. Consistency is the key in 22. Consistency is the key. We've said that for a lot of guys over the last couple years. That's a key for a lot of guys around Major League Baseball, but it seems like a lot more for the St. Louis Cardinals. One of those guys is somebody who just got paid. And Harrison Bader signed a 2-year extension, taking care of his 2 years left in arbitration. So I want to finish the show talking about him as well as other extension candidates for the St. Louis Cardinals that have been reported on, and my thoughts on those two as well. So talking about extensions coming up here in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you guys about the best tasting protein bar on the market. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, and that is Built Bar. Built Bar have some incredible tasty Built Bars. They also have what they call Built Puffs. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They are fluffy, marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They are a treat, and they're covered 100% in real, authentic chocolate, just like the Built Bars, because every single Built Bar is covered in 100% chocolate. And they are low-calorie, high-protein. You can replace your candy bar with these because most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to your typical candy bar that has 200 to 300 calories. Built Bar is the way to go. And at Built Bar, they are all about taste. They make it delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how they do it, but they pull it off every single time. Go to Built.com today and enter the promo code LOCKED15. That is LOCKED15, LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off at Built.com. So as I mentioned before that break, the Cardinals did sign Harrison Bader to an extension covering up his last couple of years of arbitration, which I think is a solid move. Ken Rosenthal reporting that it's worth a guaranteed $10.4 million, $1 million signing bonus, and $4.7 million a year for the next 2 years. Harrison Bader says that he wants to talk about a long-term extension, but for where he's at right now, this is a great space to be, great spot to be, and he's excited to be a Cardinal for a little while longer, I think. But this is a good move for the St. Louis Cardinals. You're signing, in my opinion, one of the top center fielders in baseball, maybe not top 5, but arguably at least top 10, especially if you want to throw in all the sabermetrics and advanced statistics that a lot of people like to throw around, then yeah, this is a great signing to get him for $4.7 million a year. And this Cardinal outfield, I talked about it a lot, I've talked about it on this show even, has the chance to be one of the best outfields in baseball. And to lock one of your guys up for 2 years, that's great. Another guy that the Cardinals have talked, or at least that has shown interest in being locked up by the St. Louis Cardinals in a good term, is Tyler O'Neill, as well as Katie Wu reporting Giovanni Gallegos, who just signed a deal to avoid arbitration. But Katie Wu reporting that the Cardinals could be interested in signing an extension with Gallegos. He has 2 arbitration-eligible years remaining. They did sign a 1-year, $2.4 million deal, avoiding arbitration. But yesterday, she's reporting that they're closer to a multi-year contract extension, similar to Harrison Bader's. Gallegos and O'Neill will be 2 great guys to lock up, at minimum, through their pre-arbitration years, or through their arbitration-eligible years, Because then you have that all in your books. You know what you're going to be spending. It's just something off your chest. And at the end of the day, these are above-average talents. I think Gallegos is one of the most underrated arms in all of baseball, especially when you're looking at a bullpen standpoint of things. Tyler O'Neill is one of the best left fielders in all of baseball. Now, he has to prove that last year wasn't a fluke, right? But I think he has the ability to do that. But if I had to pick one, like if I was forced to only pick one to extend, I'm going with Tyler O'Neill. 5-tool player, can do it all. And I'm not trying to say that I wouldn't sign Gallegos. I would like to sign them both. But let's just say, for hypothetical sense, I can only sign one. I'm signing Tyler O'Neill to a contract extension. I want to know what you think. Drop a comment in the YouTube section below. Because I can understand the argument for both ways. Well, yeah, Tyler O'Neill put up a great year last year. He's shown potential for a while, but he needs to put up more results for me in order to get a contract extension. I get that. Totally get that. As well as Giovanni Gallegos, he's been better for longer. You know what you're going to get. Lock him up. You don't know what bullpen arms are going to be, so you might as well lock up the good ones while you have them. Great point. I understand the logic behind both of those points. I'm still going with Tyler O'Neill because of the fact that I think O'Neill can be a stepping stone to extending Bader longer, to getting Carlson locked up as well, and keeping those three in your outfield for as long as possible. Because that needs to be up there on your list of priorities. Yep, you got Florida's contract coming. Yep, you're probably going to have to deal with the contract of Edmonds soon. Find a first baseman here in the next couple of years. But this outfield, everybody, I just think this outfield is so good. So incredibly good. So let me know who you think the Cardinals should sign to a contract extension. Do you think it should be O'Neill? Do you think it should be Gallegos? Oh, apologies about that light that just went out. Do you think it should be somebody else? Let me know in the YouTube comment section below. You can also DM me on Twitter at LJFastball. You can DM the show on Twitter or Instagram at LO_Cardinals as well. And it's a good timing that the light just went out on YouTube because that is going to do it for the show today. Thanks for making Locked on Cardinals your first listen of the day. Be sure to tune back tomorrow. One more time, NL Central Roundtable with 6 of the 7 Locked on Central hosts. It was a lot of fun to record with those guys. 2 shows have co-hosts. That's why there's more than just 5. But it was a lot of fun to record with those guys. Come back tomorrow to listen to that roundtable discussion. Be sure to listen to Locked on MLB today with Paul Francis Sullivan, but be sure to call him Sully. And until I talk to you guys the next time, be sure to stay safe, stay well, and have a fantastic rest of your day.